And here we are on the map. It is Ohana in the bottom right-hand corner. Ladies and gentlemen, in the red from Team Prime. Kicking it off here, we have Byun. Byun, a very macro-oriented player, loves his late game. We'll see how he fares here against his opponent in the top left-hand corner. The Protoss player, you never really know what is going to be hitting you from his end. Guys, give it up for JYP.
Okay, so JYP versus Byun Prime here to kick things off, and I'm kind of glad we're starting with this. PVT, I mean, so often lately, of course, Zergs have been leading off in almost every team league that we've had so far. We've even frequently started with ZVZs, so this is kind of a breath of fresh air. It was funny because this was kind of, I think, the matchup that people were getting really tired of about 10 to 12 months ago, because it was all you ever saw. It was TVT or PVT all the time, all the time, all the time. But lately...
Then they buffed Infestors.
Yes.
And then...
But lately, it's actually
a dramatic shift, and
it's been very refreshing to watch this.
Yeah, at this point it is. It's like the seasons, you know. When it's in the winter, God, the winter is just dragging, and it's so cold outside. But hey, when it's the summer, I mean, you couldn't ask for more than a nice wintry day. So right now, maybe we're in the winter of StarCraft 2, and here's a nice warm day for you guys. We got some Terran versus Protoss.
It's not a terribly dynamic matchup, though. Not a lot has changed significantly over the past few months in this. We still usually have bio compositions coming out for Terran players. Yeah, we had players like C before he departed Liquid toying around with mech, even used it to pretty good success at IPL 5, but largely you're going to get that bio composition. As the Protoss techs up, if you see Charge-Lot Archon, you usually see Ghosts. If you see Colossi, you'll see Vikings, and then they kind of just battle it out.
Yeah, it's one of the few matchups where we haven't seen a unit added in that was never really previously used. I mean, you take a look at ZVZ, people started using Infestors, where originally Infestors were not a part of things at all. It was Roach Hydra, or Mutalisks, which were also not used until really Nestea started pioneering them in the GSL. Then you run in, you look at things ZVT. I mean, okay, Infestors, same answer. In fact, all the Zerg matchups, let's just say Infestors. Let's just put that out there.
Yeah, pretty much.
And then the only matchup left are your mirror matchups, where TBT, you added mech. We saw Rainbow actually kind of kick that off at Terminus. I remember they were like, what? He's making multiple factories? It was on Terminus, and I mean, it actually got really, really popular in Mountain. Mech is now a viable playstyle. So I agree with you, Kevin. TVP is really the only one that we haven't seen an entire new unit or composition really enter the field.
Yeah, I mean, even in TVZ, you have 3 distinct styles of Terran. You could see it is towards the late game. You could even see that Sky Terran in addition to the mech and biomech that we were talking about before. Even just straight up bio player, someone like Pulse, can favor that from time to time. So, but in TVP, you're largely going to sit on a couple of established strategies. For now, though, let's take a look at our players. Byun opening up with a 1 Rax gasless fast expand into 3 racks afterwards. We'll see if he just dunks down double gas and goes after upgrades, and it looks like he is.
Yeah, I was thinking the exact same thing. But, for JYP, on the other hand, he's got his Stalker, he's got his Warp Gate, and it looks like he's now going to go for that expand. Pretty standard stuff here. And, I mean, against Byun, okay, all right. You're going to play a little standard. As we said, Byun does really shine in the late game. On bigger maps, expect him to go for like a 1 Rax expand into another command center. It's not surprising at all, but Ohana's reasonably small, so he's playing it nice and safe.
Although it is kind of a weird map for late game TVP, I guess, because you have, as actually we'll talk about that in a second after these the Stalker and Zealot is finished poking around here. Nice job pulling that SUV off to the side. He's just waiting until he has enough Marines that he can start to push this back. JYP actually going to engage this and try and pick off a Marine or 2 before any units go down. He does manage to snag 2 Marines. No, can't get the 3rd, though, unfortunately. So 100 minerals for 100 minerals and a little bit of pressure put on this orbital command.
Yeah, the pressure is nice. It's definitely keeping Byun occupied here. But more likely he could make small mistakes, though. He's managed... Actually, he did. He started up Stim here about 50 gas later than he needed to. Yeah. So, smooth plays here out of JYP, who hasn't missed a step at home. His Forge right on time, and he's even got the Sentry on the way as well.
Forge into 3 gates coming up for him, though, and that's something that you wouldn't have seen a few months ago, but lately it can be used for a variety of purposes. A well-placed photon cannon at the front can actually stop small bio pushes pretty effectively with just a couple of sentries, which is what we see here already. Add into that players aren't needing to remain as defensive right at the beginning, so you're not frequently seeing those 27 second and third gateways, 27 supply second and third gateways like you used to.
No, I couldn't agree with you more, Kev. the surprising thing here is that JYP went for that Forge. Oh, he is now starting the upgrade, but you're so right about the cannon, because Axelive uses that to great effect, often opting for very, very greedy either Nexus first openings or one gate expand with really no units, then goes for the fast Forge and the cannon to play it safe. Here we saw JYP instead play a little bit more on the unit-oriented end of that spectrum, and we may see him opt to push because of that. We'll have to keep an eye on what he does decide to do with that Robo.
Yeah, he's actually a little bit lucky at the beginning. He kept really good vision with that Stalker. That's why it was still poking in, even though it was at really low health, because he just wanted to keep his opponent on his side of the map right now, because JYP actually played very greedy there.
Yeah.
He waited a long time, got a lot of probes before he put down any other structures. Then he went Forge, upgrade, 2 gates, Robo at about the same time. And that's a lot to invest in all at once. And you can see all he has is a few sentries. That does keep you pretty safe, but had something very concerted, let's say 2 racks, expand, Marauder, Marine push or something like that happen, he could have been in quite a bit of trouble.
Yeah, that's a great point, and it really does play into Beyond's playstyle, because we know that Beyond tends to favor these later games and not so much want to pressure.
Exactly.
JYP acknowledging that and saying, I'm going to play a little bit greedy then, because I'm not expecting a big push right now.
Now, the one thing, though, that Beyond's going to have to worry about as he goes towards the late game, because even though he's been unimpeded right now, we mentioned before JYP's playing very greedy and getting away with it, basically.
Yeah.
He's already on 2 Forges. We assume we'll see a second upgrade. Yeah, there we go. So he's actually significantly farther ahead on his upgrades than Beyond is at the moment. With Chrono Boosts, this +1 weapons will finish it at almost the same time as this infantry weapons if he's really diligent about Chrono Boosting it.
Yeah, that definitely would be very scary for Beyond, who actually right now is moving out across the map. This could opt to be a very good timing for him. He's got 2 medevacs on the way. If he actually goes for a really strong drop here, Kev, JYP's investment into sentries could really come back to bite him.
Yeah, I mean, this is, you mentioned the strong timing, and that's certainly going to be the case. And he picks off this Observer, too, just before those medevacs pop out. So very cool stuff. But this is a strong timing. It hits with the +1, hits with the combat shields, about 4 medevacs, and he can do some significant damage. He could actually ferry all 32 Marines directly into the main here in just a bit.
Well, we're going to see if he can pull it off. There is a pylon in position towards the left, and he also has an observer here as well helping in order to scout. So very comprehensive vision here from JYP. It's going to be difficult for Beyond to get this in without being noticed, but it still has the potential to be very strong.
Yeah, I mean, it hits a little later than just like the 2 medevac with just stim, because now he can actually hit with the combat shields, 4 medevacs, etc. Oh, and he's just going to press it right now. Ferry's on top of the high ground. His upgrades are just finishing up. In fact, they do right now, and this was a pretty darn good time to hit of any time. Looks like he's trying to focus down the photon cannon up the front, but ends up not killing any of his opponent's units. Oh, he gets surrounded with some force fields. Very good force field control there. Beyond doesn't pick up those units again, and the Stalkers are going to clean everything else up.
Those were very good force fields, trapping all those units, and you kind of saw how JYP waited. None of his units were firing. He just had the Guardian Shield down, denying that excess damage, and once those force fields trapped all those units, then we saw the big concave out of JYP. Very smooth, very crisp play.
All right, well, he's going to try and redouble his efforts. The second set of force fields weren't as good. It prevents the Marines from continuing to engage, but of course they would have died had they just kept stepping in. Very aggressive blink directly on top of these units, and the Marines, of course, do a decent job once they have upgrades of chewing through Stalkers, but they were too low in health anyway and had to run away. Now, the one advantage that Beyond has going for him at the moment is that he had a finished 3rd command center, but you can see already how scared he is with his position on the map. He's immediately bringing it back into his natural when he'd love to get that saturated and eke some sort of an advantage in this game.
Yeah, he definitely would. After, especially, you know, kind of missing the benefits now of having constructed on the low ground. He took the risk without gaining the reward. That's quite unfortunate. But here we are now with these Stalkers proving mobility can be king sometimes. They're going to be able to snipe that reactor and get out. That is so nice, of course, because that long construction time, 50 seconds, is going to take really a damper on Beyond's ability to produce those medevacs. Yeah. In fact, he's going to swap it looks like.
Very cool stuff. And of course, once you kill the reactor, the current build time, even though it stops building both at the same time, the build time that was finished on the other unit that you were constructing is still along. So that's why when that first medevac finished, the second one was like 2/3 of the way
Kevin,
done.
did you know that beforehand, or did you just realize that's what happened?
No, I knew that beforehand. So
no, I'm just having fun. Medevacs moving out. That's a lot of medevacs, actually.
Yeah, it is.
There's a huge quantity of medevacs. One going to be sniped down, but yeah, Stalkers do need to get out of there.
Yeah, but they have to get out of there. But that was a good trade. 2 medevacs for 1 Stalker. You'd take that any day. So,
he did it. I was actually surprised that Beyond didn't force the full stim. I think maybe that's what JYP was trying to do, force the stim and blink the Stalkers away. But when the stim never happened, he's like, well, all right, 1 medevac. 2. Nice.
Sure, yeah, we'll just keep going with this.
It was like a game of chicken, and really...
Had he been able to bait those forces effectively and stand it there and kill a few of those stalkers, it would have been fine. And sometimes you do see that happen, like, oh, look at these juicy medevacs. You want to come up and kill them, don't you? You want to blink underneath them, and then he just runs up and kills them. But what didn't work in this circumstance?
This is something that Bjorn is so good at, finding pylons. Like, really, watch this guy. He never lets you get a pylon on his side of the map. It's really impressive stuff, and he did just find the one towards the back of that third base.
Now, of course, our esteemed Protoss player decided to bypass the Colossus route for the time being and going after that Charge Light Archon that we were talking about, Charge Light Storm for now. Bjorn actually going to engage us, so we'll talk about this here in a second. Those Zealots never actually ended up doing any damage. It was the Stalkers in the back that did damage. They ran up and then decided to turn away immediately, so Bjorn gets a pretty decent engagement there, picks off the Immortal, well, he could, there we go, and nabs the Sentry on the way out too, so Bjorn doing great damage here. JYP not being able to press that early advantage he gained himself.
Now, you can look at the supply and you see, 165 to 125. We had a very nice upgrade advantage, though, going on for JYP. He's about to finish +3 armor. He's just starting +3 weapons, where Tutu's halfway done for Bjorn. But that last engagement, picking off those few sentries and immortals, whatever disadvantage Bjorn may have been at earlier, he has definitely equalized that and is in a great position at this point of the game.
Oh, yeah, no, I mean, Bjorn's looking really good at the moment. Of course, that +3 armor is about to finish. It's still a very strong unit composition for a Protoss player. You can see he's got a lot of Storms available and ready to go. High Templar continue to be morphed in at the moment, too. So 7 High Templar actually just make that 5, and 2 of them become an Archon. And a lot of charge lots there, but that single Archon and those couple of Storms, that's all the AoE he has at his disposal. And because Bjorn hasn't had to invest in any Vikings, he's got a very powerful ground army.
Well, Zealot's getting pretty far ahead right now. Stalkers and High Templar are going to need to be able to keep up here. Those High Templar are falling further and further behind, and JYP is going to take a moment's respite to allow those to catch up.
Okay, well, there's a couple of ghosts out on the field now, 4 of them. 3 more being produced at a time. Snipe for a Storm there, but the Storm doesn't end up hitting that many units, and there's still, enough energy left on these medevacs. Of course, the great advantage not having to produce any Vikings whatsoever, that he can heal up those forces very quickly.
Now, we're not seeing JYP make the move towards Colossus quite yet, and as I say that, the Robotics Bay actually does go down. So we'll be making that transition, but it is a little bit late here. Take note of that, because, I mean, Bjorn, he hasn't had to make Vikings, and that has allowed his medevac count to get absolutely out of control. A couple of High Templars get picked off. Nice Storm on the Ghost, though, and that was an EMP/snipe.
Yeah, a nice little 1-2 combo there. Yeah, very cool. Another High Templar trying to come up to the front, drops off another Storm, but I'll give it to Bjorn. I mean, he's done a really nice job managing these past couple of engagements. Didn't have the most effective EMPs a couple of times there, but he's been able to continue pressing forward a little bit. He's establishing his 4th base. The next command center's done. He's getting closer to caught up on his upgrades for now. He's even researching with a little bit of extra money that he had to go around +1 weapons in case he needs to switch into Vikings. But here we go. The engagement is happening, and these Zealots are getting chewed to pieces off to the right-hand side. The Templar tried to flank from the left to get off Storm, so they only ended up hitting a couple of units that were up at the front. The Ghosts have largely not been touched at the back, and they're able to kill quite a few of the Zealots, and it looks like Bjorn is going to have enough left over that he'll even be able to kill not just these units, but the subsequent Warpin that just happened to reinforce that.
Just such a beautiful timing here out of Bjorn. Kevin, the Colossus were just getting ready to start hitting the field. The second robotic facility had finished, the Robo Bay had completed, but nothing matters because Bjorn was knocking on his door while JYP was knocking down that V button trying to make those Colossus. That's actually my hotkey for Colossi, so sorry about that.
No problem. That's all right. We'll forgive you.
Bjorn's heading out, guys, now. He just killed JYP's 3rd. He's feeling real good.
Yeah, all right. Well, gets a few Ghosts trapped off to the side. That's not the way he would like that to happen, but it doesn't really matter at this point. I mean, he would need to take some significant engagements here afterwards because behind all of this, there's that 4th base we were talking about, going to get sat down and saturated for Bjorn, and there's really just nothing JYP can do about that. He's not making any units right now at a time when he absolutely has to make units to put on pressure because he has to rebuild this Nexus.
Yep. I mean, it really did just come down to Bjorn having so many medevacs because he didn't have to make any Vikings, and having the Ghosts necessary to deal with JYP's Dark Templar and massive Zealot army. The Zealots are so tight, they're so compact, so you can just obliterate those shields incredibly easily with EMPs, which Bjorn had more than an adequate number of.
All right, well, here comes Bjorn now. Looks like he's going to roll in for round number 2 momentarily, or so I would assume, and this is not that powerful of an army. He's got 1 Colossus, a sentry, 2 Archons. That's not really going to cut it, unfortunately.
We call that the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen if they win this fight.
Nice, actually. It was kind of cool. Oh, JYP couldn't follow up with the second High Templar.
It was a funny joke, right?
Yeah. League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
Oh, you were talking about...
Aw. I don't know what we're talking about anymore.
We're just having fun. Guys, Bjorn, Kevin, let's talk about it, man. Is there any way that JYP is not dead right now?
Not really, unfortunately. We try not to be those guys that are like, yep, game's over, GG, we might as well quit now when you're like 5 minutes into the game.
But at the same point, we want to be realistic here. So,
yes.
I mean, we know that it would come down to the storms.
Yes. Well, here's the win scenario. If he groups up all of his units, he misses all of his EMPs, which he already hit all of them, and then sits directly on top of storms and doesn't move his units. That was a pretty good storm. Yeah. Warded away the units for a while, but he would need another one of those right now, and they would need to kill all of those.
Let's point that out. There's no Vikings at all. He's not making any either. If he can keep this third alive and not lose these probes, may have a chance here. It's still 78 supply, though, to 160. And you know what? Colossus getting caught, and that's going to be it.
Yep.
JYP has fallen with the Colossus. GG.
All right, Prime takes game number 1. Pretty convincing style. Beyond did get behind early in the game, but... you know, JYP was never able to really capitalize on it, and Beyond just stretched a really huge advantage and played smartly from there on out.
Yeah, you know, it was a little rough in the beginning, as you said, but Beyond plays crisp, and that's, I think, maybe why he likes the late game so much.
Yeah.
It's just very, very clean. As I mentioned, you know, he always finds pylons. He's what's a good word for this? You know, he's it's like doing your chores when you're a little 5-year-old kid, you know?
Diligent.
Diligent. Thank you. That is the exact word, in fact, which I was searching for.
Oh, well, geez. Shucks.
Kevin, you have ESP, man.
I guess I do.
You're a subconscious mind reader.
Well, guys, we are going to run to a quick commercial break right now. When we get back, it's going to be game number 2. Looks like the second player coming in for Evil Geniuses is Puma. So a TVT on Antigua Shipyard. Don't go anywhere.